Sorry, straight white men, Doctor Who was never made for you. Who said it was, though? For real, where are these people coming from? I think some people have a point in that a lot of these journalists, if they call themselves that, or entertainment reporters, as they say, are just trying to rage bait people, because I don't see anywhere where white people or white men were saying that Doctor Who was just for them. So I know you're probably wondering, well, why even bother give an article like this the time of day? Well, first of all, people are discussing this, so I like discussing things. And I'm also trying to understand this person's perspective. And already within the first paragraph, I can tell this person shouldn't be taken that seriously because they're not taking the audience seriously or these concerns seriously. Also, I've talked about this before, but for those who are very new, I know this may come as a shock, but it's never a good idea to attack your audience if you're depending on them to buy your stuff. They're essentially your consumers. But anyway, let's give it a chance and hear what this person is saying, and let's discuss this. Because as I've said, just looking at comments such of these and screaming, ugh, woke, disgusting, is understandable, but it's not really having an actual conversation. And maybe the people writing this legitimately don't know, or they've never gotten another perspective because everybody who's around them speaks like this. It's good to surround yourself with people who have many different perspectives. So let's see. She starts off by saying, from the moment I saw Shuri Gatwa, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, because I've heard people pronouncing it two different ways, but from the moment I saw Shuri Gatwa dancing the night away in a bright outfit during the 2023 Christmas special, I knew I would fall in love with his iteration of the Doctor. Not everyone was as excited by an unapologetically queer black doctor Doctor Who though. A vocal contingent of keyboard warriors took to social media to claim the show had gone too woke. From arguing that the show has been torn apart by woke ideologues to creating their own social media trend, Rip Doctor Who, hashtag Rip Doctor Who, you don't need to go far to find the litany of tired complaints. But I'd argue that the show has always been socially progressive and inclusive. Okay, allow me to set a scenario for you. Imagine running a restaurant where loyal customers have been dining there for years, and one day you decide to completely revamp the menu and introduce new exciting dishes. Some of the regulars aren't particularly thrilled with the changes because you've had basically the same menu or more or less the same menu or the basic menu, and you've only had specials throughout, maybe on Saturdays or through the seasons. You'll have different specials here and there, but you can still go and order a cheeseburger, order chicken parmesan, that kind of stuff. So people are kind of upset the entire menu has just been scrapped and completely different. And instead of addressing their concerns, you tell them, I'm sorry, this new menu isn't made for you. This sounds ridiculous, but that's basically what happened with Doctor Who, a beloved show that has been facing backlash from its longtime fans. In recent years, Doctor Who has undergone significant changes, including casting Shuri Gatwa as the Doctor. Now, while I do agree that diversity and inclusion can be commendable, it's not like this was a new thing, and the way that BBC handled criticism from fans was something that you'd expect from a 6-year-old and not from a very large company, especially a British company. Aren't they supposed to be the epitome of class? And so this article comes out essentially saying, sorry, straight white men, the Doctor wasn't made for you, or the Doctor Who show wasn't made for you. This epitomizes a weird communication strategy that feels like someone trying to carry water through a strainer. And I know I hate bringing this up over and over again, but the golden rule of entertainment, don't bite the hand that feeds you. When you think about it, the fans of Doctor Who have been ardently supporting the show for decades through thick and thin. They've been there. They've been there long before I even knew Doctor Who was a thing. And I can't even call myself a fan because there are people out there that I know have bought the DVD collections, the merchandise, and the convention tickets, and people like this are the reason Doctor Who has survived throughout the years. So when these fans voice their concerns or displeasure with the direction of the show, dismissing them outright is like telling your restaurant regulars that their taste buds are outdated. And mind you, a very huge swath of them are white dudes that might identify as straight, but the thing is, you don't really know that. Most of the fans are women, as a matter of fact. There are also a lot of gay men who may or may not be white expressing their ire about the direction that Doctor Who's taken. Have these people stopped to consider that it might not just be the fact that they're casting a black doctor? I know this sounds weird, but have you stopped for 1 second to probably work out in your brain that it might not just be straight white men that have a problem with this? No, because any criticism that comes their way, they automatically hide behind the shield of you're racist or you're homophobic, because the main character just happens to be portrayed by someone who's gay and black. So if you say anything or criticize the show at all, it just has to be one of those two things. I don't know why shows are doing this nowadays, but when a show starts attacking its audience, that's like saying your opinions don't matter. And this is a surefire way to alienate the very people who have been keeping the franchise alive that you want to continue keeping it alive. You're trying to draw in audiences that aren't the ones that have been keeping the show alive. You're alienating all the ones, 99% of them who have. And I dare say, criticism is part and parcel of any creative endeavor. Constructive feedback from longtime fans and viewers is still valuable. Why? Because it offers you insights, gives you inspiration on what makes the show resonate, on what they like about the show. So instead of seeing this as an attack, I don't understand why these companies don't see it as an opportunity for growth and improvement. Maybe because they feel as though they've already arrived and they've grown as big as they can get. But they always say the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And so you should actually be working to keep yourself on the throne that you're using to stomp on everybody's heads. Growth and improvement. What's that? Such an outdated concept. I know that people might think that the big elephant fire twerking in the room is inclusivity. I think the reason why is because the BBC seems to be putting that on the front burner more than story and substance and character. Stuff like Doctor Who is more queer than ever, just the way its showrunner likes it. Okay, so long as we're admitting that they're making shows just for the showrunners to enjoy, and nobody cares about it being queer. We'll get into that later. Diversity in the cast and storylines is a good thing, but it needs to be handled with nuance and respect. By framing the new Doctor Who as something specifically not for a particular demographic, i.e. straight white men, newsflash, your message becomes very exclusionary and, I know, weirdly, racist. New viewers who might belong to that demographic or who have friends that belong to that demographic might be put off by the notion that they aren't the intended audience, which I know, shocking, will eventually reduce the potential for expanding the fan base. And if you don't want to do that, fine, but don't come crying when people stop buying your merchandise and when you realize that the popularity of the show starts nosediving. Also, apart from blatant racism, attacking your audience is never a good look. The defensive stance of if you don't like it, it's not for you, it comes off as very arrogant and dismissive, and it furthers a divide between the creators and the consumers. And this only fosters this environment where feedback is not welcome, and if you dissent or say anything against it, you're censored and punished. Very tyrannical. I don't understand how people who shill always go on the offense with the audience as a means to stifle genuine discussion and concerns. And you doing this doesn't give you the effect that you were expecting. It always ends up backfiring. It always does. And you do also end up alienating viewers who might otherwise have been open to the new direction, but now are turned off even further by the hostile rhetoric. And the new people who aren't even privy to everything that goes on within the realms of the internet might catch wind of this and think, damn, that's a very hostile environment, and they won't even bother with the show. So what is your plan? To tell the audience to fuck off because they don't like the new direction? It's like cutting off the head of your crotch panhandle to stop someone else from climaxing. I understand the Doctor Who has always been about change and evolution, but it's also been about the fans who journey through time and space with it, embracing new ideas, and cast members doesn't have to come at the expense of alienating those who supported the show for years. And if you're trying to draw in those people initially, which is what these companies do, hijacking a franchise that they've supported for all these years and then shitting on their chest when they have legitimate concerns past just the generic accusations of racism and homophobia, doesn't seem as though it's going to be a good end for what you're attempting to make a profit off of. So the article continues by saying, I started watching the show during David Tennant's run as the 10th Doctor over 15 years ago and immediately fell in love with the beautiful themes of found family combined with the captivating space and time adventures. I never looked back. Over the past 60 years, the iconic British TV show has cultivated and devoted a fan base, following the timey-wimey adventures of an alien known as the Doctor and his human companion in the TARDIS. Fair enough. When I was introduced to Doctor Who, it was already an old show and my ex started me from Chris Eccleston, and I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me. And of course, David Tennant's Doctor was my favorite. And to this day, he is still my favorite.
Who put you in charge? And who the hell are you anyway?
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey, the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below. No problem with that?
No.
In that case, animals eat.
I like everyone just follows him and they don't even question whether or not he's freaking insane. I hated Matt Smith when he came onto the scene. I hated him with a freaking passion, but I only hated him because I thought he was miscast as the Doctor and he looked like a freaking tomb. But he grew on me after a while, and he's one of the better iterations of the Doctor, even though I still think David Tennant's is the best. Didn't really care for Peter Capaldi either because he was ancient, and I was already still missing the 10th Doctor, but he grew on me as well. I remember that there were times where I was just losing my patience and cussing out the new Doctors on screen because of how annoyed I was to be forced to sit and watch this. Yes, I was forced. No, I did not have a gun to my head. However, Peter Capaldi won me over as well, surprisingly. And at some point, each of these Doctors proved themselves after a few episodes. Jodie Whittaker's Doctor did not.
Finally, we meet. You actually do exist. What? Don't be ridiculous, Franklin. I've read the files. The Doctor is a man.
I've had an upgrade. Hi.
Disgusting. Disgusting!
Holy shit, I have never hated a casting for something as much as I hated hers. And shocker, it had nothing to do with her being a woman, even though the BBC tried to beat you over the head with it and remind you at every turn, like in that very distasteful, misandrous clip that I showed you. They did that with the new cast as well. And it does come off as so preachy and such a turn-off that it elicits a bile-chucking reaction.
Wrapped around your cortex.
Yes, we know. We know everything, thanks. And you know nothing. Did you know you're not woman anymore? Because you have to. We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
I swear to God, it's as if a 7-year-old with a chip on their shoulder wrote these scripts. Or took their Scrabble pieces, put it in their mouth, gargled with it, and spat it all over the freaking canvas. And someone took that and said, work of art, let's just make it into a script. Wherever the chips fall, that's what we write. I thought British people were supposed to be more mature, passionate, and proud of their craft. The author of this article goes on to claiming, in a nutshell, there is no world too crazy, time too far, or creature too strange. Not even the end of the universe is the limit. So for a show so versatile and with fluidity so naturally imbued into its bones, it's truly baffling that a non-straight, non-white Doctor feels so unbelievable to so many people. It's not the first time this woke accusation has been leveled at the show. I do agree with this. Doctor Who has always been about wild adventures and limitless possibilities, but here's the thing. From what I gather, most fans aren't losing their minds over the Doctor being non-straight or non-white per se. It's the lazy writing, it's the blatant tokenism and annoying white male shaming that's making fans cringe. Imagine loving a show for its intricate storytelling only to have it replaced with this preachy and surface level narratives. It's like you're going to a favorite restaurant like I mentioned before, ordering the dish you love and getting a plate of bland undercooked vegetables instead. Sure, the vegetables are great, the atmosphere still feels like the restaurant you used to eat at, but not when they're shoved down your throat with a side of guilt and shaming and insults. Anybody would think that someone spat in their food and as a result would not want to eat it. And they would of course leave a review on how badly they were treated. Doctor Who's strength was always in its rich stories and character development, not in ticking diversity boxes for the sake of it. So, author, it's not that fans can't handle a non-straight, non-white Doctor. They just want the show to stop patting itself on the back for being pseudo-progressive and start focusing on quality storytelling again. Is that really too much to ask? No one should care what color the Doctor is or what gender the Doctor is, or who the Doctor chooses to sleep with. But don't market the show as if that's the entirety of the show or what the identity of the show is primarily comprised of. Gatwa's predecessor, Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor, battled intense public scrutiny as the first woman to take over the beloved role. Angry viewers similarly accused the show of pandering to woke times, causing Jodie to tell the press it's terrifying that a woman being given a particular job can cause so much rage. Now Ncuti has been forced to justify his place in the sci-fi series since news of his casting in May 2022. Okay, I hate the victim narrative with these articles. It's not like fans threw a fit just because the Doctor was a woman. The uproar was about BBC's blatant tokenism and the ham-fisted way that they handled it. It's like they thought slapping a first female Doctor sticker on the show would make up for the shoddy storytelling and character development. Spoilers, it didn't. Fans have cheered for countless female leads in other shows, both in the UK and the US, and from other countries. It's not like she's the first female main character ever. The problem wasn't Jodie Whittaker being a woman. It was BBC's smug, look at how progressive we are attitude while the show itself was floundering. And even before the show started, they set themselves on fire with the stupid ass narrative that turned people off, including, I know this is surprising to hear, many women who were fans of the franchise as well as me. Then we get Ncuti Gatwa, who I actually do like as the Doctor so far, even though he doesn't really feel like the Doctor at the moment, but he's much better than Jodie Whittaker. And I do like his bright, sunny nature. But we also get him, of all people, going on the offensive and shaming and attacking the fans as well, when all the fans want is for the BBC to actually focus on quality writing this time, instead of another round of self-congratulatory virtue signaling. In my opinion, he should have just kept his mouth shut and proved everyone wrong, like most actors used to do. Unless you're not actually an actor. Let them say what they want to say. Let people even be ignorant, because I'm not discounting ignorant people out there. Just like with House of Dragon, there were some people that had a very big problem with the dark-skinned Targaryens. Now, I didn't have a problem with it personally, because I also didn't read the books, and since there was no previous iteration on screen of the Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones franchise, I was open to changes. I'm open to that once it's not already widely established. And so when we had these new Targaryens and they delivered a kick-ass performance, not to mention we can tell through genetics which characters belong with whom, everybody fell in love with it. Even the people who were like, yes, but there was no black Targaryens. They might have had a reason to be angry. I completely understand where they're coming from, being fans of the book. But once they saw that these characters came to life on screen, took their roles seriously, and still were able to deliver good, fantastic storytelling, all of a sudden, this inconsistency with the appearance of Targaryens just went off into the ether, and people were like, you know what? I don't like the change that was made, but now I'm digging it, because damn, the story is actually really freaking good. Like, House of the Dragon came out of nowhere and wowed everyone, or specifically the Valerians. I didn't have a problem with it. My thing was the hair. The Targaryens have a certain type of hair. I didn't even know that they were pale skinned and purple-eyed or whatever people said about them, because this is my first exposure to them on screen. So if they want to go forward with that being their signature thing, as long as they have a signature thing where we can tell them apart, it works. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic of dark-skinned individuals with pale-skinned individuals, and them being prejudiced towards someone who has brown hair as not being part of their family, and that's how things work there. Because in other parts of the world, it's kind of similar. It's not just always about black and white, it's about your class, it's about your eye color. There are parts of the world where people think that blue-eyed people are demons, like in ancient Japan and in some African countries. It just is what it is. People are treated differently based on little differences like that. It's not always just about color. Americans' history is not everybody else's history, and people need to start remembering that. So that's what people are talking about, and it shouldn't be that hard to give us a Doctor that's both inclusive and well-written. Fans aren't asking for miracles, just a show that respects its legacy and its audience. The thing is, when they introduced Missy...
You know what this is? This thing you're about to destroy. I'll tell you. It's the dogs unmentionable. And you know all about those, don't you? This is a TARDIS. With this, you can go anywhere, do anything, kill anyone. With this, Daleks can be more powerful than ever before. You just need one thing. Me. You need me.
Goddamn, I love that woman. Yeah, so they introduced Missy and the other iteration of the Master played by Sacha Dhawan. There were so many people who loved these iterations and believed that these two people should have been casted as the Doctor. We didn't give a damn what they looked like, as long as their performance was good and the storytelling and writing were decent. I was actually really angry because I feel like Missy should have been one of the Doctors. She embodied Doctor Who, and it wasn't about her being a woman. It was about her charisma and her performance and how intimidating she was, yet sly. Like, at times, she ended up feeling more like the Doctor than the freaking Doctor did. The same thing with the Master.
But I thought here would be a fitting place to end this. Oh, excuse me. Check my notifications.
Oh my god. Oh man, he would have made a great Doctor. And on top of that, not only is he oozing charisma, he's freaking drop dead gorgeous. Like, y'all missed a big opportunity to draw a massive fan base from thirsty women. Like, bro. Oh my god. It makes me mad every time I think about it. Like, why would you cast the better people to be the Doctor as the freaking... Ugh. Anyway.
Surprisingly good stuff, Bantine. I have had...
Oh my god, I love him. Oh Oh my god, bro, why? I'm so angry at that. Like, so many women thirsted over the 10th Doctor, and that was partly, okay, that was a huge reason why he was so popular. People forget that they can create other franchises specifically to draw in gay people. Yes, the Doctor can be anyone, but at his core, he's still the same. God damn it, BFC, why? All right, you know what, I'm not even gonna, I'll just mourn what could have been. So beautiful. Yes, the Doctor can be anyone, but at his core, he's still the same.
I'm in my dressing gown.
Yes, you are.
There's a strange man in my bedroom
Yes, there is.
where anything could happen.
No.
At most, on the surface level, he will change a little bit of his personality, but he is still the Doctor. Now they're trying to explain that away by taking off a piece of the Doctor and making him a separate entity, which is kind of an insult to dark-skinned people. It's as if they didn't have enough faith in a dark-skinned Doctor being his own regeneration, and so they made him something separate and are now trying to pretend as though he's still the Doctor when the real Doctor is still out there being still the Doctor. Was that a way to break people in gently? It didn't really work because it made it seem as though he took the high road and nothing was wrong with him, and David Tennant's Doctor had all the heart and pain. Now we're hearing that this Doctor did too, and it's very confusing. Not to mention, the storyline and writing of the modern day Doctor Who were all over the place, and I feel as though the people were just making it up as they go along. It doesn't even feel like they have anyone there who actually cares about continuity. The article continues, in a recent interview with Attitude, the sex education star has spoken about the irrelevance of trolls. Shudigawa, that is. You're so angry over something so inconsequential that you can't be an interesting person. You can't have much in your life. But the bigoted straight white men who have spiraled into a meltdown clearly haven't been paying attention to the reboot's rich and ever-evolving history of multiculturalism and LGBTQ plus inclusion. When Queer as Folk creator Russell T Davies brought Doctor Who back in 2005, it was clear from the get-go that this is a show for all the outcasts in society. Class commentary was placed front and center through Rose Tyler, Billie Piper, and her mom Jackie, who lived on a London council estate. And left-wing sentiment has been a common thread throughout the series. It has? Anyway. In this season, viewers were introduced to queer companion Captain Jack Harkness, who shared the same-sex kiss with the Doctor in the season finale on primetime TV as far back as 2005. Oh my god. Okay, first thing to address is I'm a little disappointed at Gatwa's blanket insults, because he's implying that anyone who criticizes the show is just an angry white man that loves to pet the cat, and that's beyond childish. Nobody's against multiculturalism or queer inclusion. I always keep bringing this up, but fans have adored Captain Jack Harkness since he first appeared in 2005, including me. Remember him? The charming pansexual time traveler who, I don't even know why this person bothered bringing up that the viewers were introduced to the same-sex kiss. That kiss wasn't even about sexuality. It was a farewell kiss. The same kind of kiss that he gave to Rose.
You are worth fighting for. Wish I never met you, Doctor. I was much better off as a coward. See you in hell.
That's how people in my culture share a kiss. That's how Italians kiss. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that exist outside of America that kiss that way. And it's completely platonic. And even if it wasn't and there was something between him and the Doctor, nobody cared because it was still a good story and a good Doctor. And Jack Harkness was a great character, and even though his sexual identity was a quirky part of him, it didn't embody all of him, and they didn't market the show as far as I was concerned, because I was introduced to this very late. But from what I could tell, he was more than just who he wanted to fuck, which was everyone and everything. Nobody cared. And I would wager that he's one of the favorite characters on the show. Everybody remembers him. And he's handsome too. And I, for one, I really hope they don't bring him back, because I know if they did, they would ruin him somehow. So before the BBC and Shudigatwa, who probably owns the BBC, starts labeling everyone as intolerant trolls, maybe take a look at the show's history and its fan base. Look at people's reactions. I don't like people labeling everything as woke either. And trust me, I understand that there are people out there that take this to the umpteenth level, but they do not represent all of us. There are a lot of people who actually do have concerns, and the people that are calling things woke started that way for a reason. I do think people are a little too trigger happy now and will call every single thing woke, even really good stories, because they happen to have diverse characters in them. However, I think people got that way because everything started to become tokenized and less about substance and story. When identity and gender and who you choose to sleep with and what your skin skin tone happens to be becomes the pivotal point and primary substance or only substance of a show or movie, and that's how it is marketed all the time, you're making everything about race and sexuality. So then people are automatically gonna see these things, and they're just gonna see your ethnicity or your sexuality, which is something you don't want people to do. You want people to see people as more than that, because we are more than just that. They put diversity in places where it didn't even belong, such as historical tales where a mostly homogenous society in terms of religion and ethnicity was substantial to the story, such as Shogun. I did a video of that with someone legitimately asking a question like, where were the black people in Shogun? And that's why people are getting upset and trigger happy over stuff like this, because we have people who expect everything to have diversity. However, if you're making an whole historical piece about Nigerian culture or Ethiopian culture, they would get so upset if you put Asian people in there for the sake of diversity. It's only when it's a white culture thing where that happens, which I personally don't even agree with. That being said, in this case, Doctor Who has always been a haven for inclusivity and diversity. It's not about the casting choices per se, it's about the execution. Fans are upset with the lazy writing, tokenism, and the patronizing tone that screams, look how progressive and non-racist we are. See, we love gay people, so let's make one break off as half of the Doctor and throw him the crumbs of a lackluster production with lackluster writing. Instead of delivering engaging stories, everyone, included the dreaded straight white male, have come to love. And let's be clear again, the same fans who cheered for Jack Harkness and his bold inclusivity are the ones you're dismissing now. Those people who accepted him and his queerness have been around supporting the show through all of that. It is so strange and staggering, the severity of the short-term memory loss of the mob of fake progressives. And the most hilarious part is that people like this aren't even satisfied, because look at the section of the article. Gatwa's Doctor is not even the first time the titular hero has centered their LGBT, gotta be an easier way to say that shit, queer identity in the episode. During Jodie's final season, The Flux, we saw a doomed romance between herself and Yaz. If anything, there's still a long way to go to make Doctor Who diverse, both in front of the and behind the camera. There's still a long way to go. What more do they need to do? We have trans representation, we have black, dark skin representation in representation, we have gay representation, we have every single kind of representation you can think of. What more needs to be done? What is wrong with these people? And also, most people did not like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I mean, even Rotten Tomatoes had the same score, see the audience score, 20%, that Metacritic had, which, funny enough, the Metacritic score was higher for the users than it was on Rotten Tomatoes, which is saying something since Rotten Tomatoes has a bad habit of censoring negative reviews. It was so bad that I didn't even finish it, so I don't know whether the romance between Yaz and the Doctor was organic or not, because I didn't even bother to finish watching it. And let me get this straight. The first female iteration of the Doctor still likes women, regardless of being female. Cool, cool, cool. But now he turns into a black man, and now he only likes men while still couple baiting and flirting with females? I mean, you could argue this away because he's technically not the Doctor, but a split-off version of him, as the original Doctor is still out there eating dinner with Donna's family and sharing stories. And if they're retconning the Doctor's sexuality by separating him and saying that the gayness was always under the surface, which was not the case, does that mean that because the actual gay Doctor has split off from him, David Tennant's Doctor is now fully straight because he said that part of him is now fully gay? Anyway, as I've said before, inclusivity was never an issue with Doctor Who. Anyone who has a problem with black people being cast in a story like this, which is essentially another version of an old TV show called The Magic School Bus, then that's their issue. Science and exploration are for everyone. I'm not talking about those fringe people. I'm talking about the majority of fans who come from every single demographic you can think of and who have legitimate concerns about the show. Even though I was kind of entertained by The Devil's Lost Chord, you could see the review I did for it because of how ridiculous it was, I can understand how hardcore fans would be upset, even as someone who would become a fan of Doctor Who. I do not see this as an actual Doctor Who story. To me, so far, it feels more like a parody, and maybe that's how I was able to get through it without much bother of the inconsistency and the continuity issues, but even still. The article says, the upcoming season only features one episode from female screenwriters and none from writers of color. You mean colored writers? Because that's the same thing. People need to stop saying that shit. So annoying. There is also yet to be a modern era showrunner who isn't a white man. And this right here is the problem. Focusing primarily on skin color and sexual orientation. This is why people are having an issue. It's so tone deaf, and the lack of self-awareness makes me want to drown in my own liquids. If you weren't ham-fisting diversity as some kind of weapon or clutch to hide behind when people warrantedly criticize the lack of substance in your show, there wouldn't be this much ire from fans. For goodness gracious, look over what you just wrote and place anybody else of any other demographic in there and see how it would sound. If it doesn't sound good with any other demographic or the other gender on there, then it's not moral. It's like saying it's okay to run over straight white men, but not anybody else. That's not okay. But oh, it's a straight white man, doesn't matter. That's what you're essentially saying. And I know it's an extreme example, but if it sounds horrible on anybody else who you like, but not the person you're prejudiced against, it doesn't sound good on this one person or this one demographic or ethnicity or skin color, then it's not right. It wasn't right in history when they did it to dark-skinned people or Irish people or Italian people or African people. It's not right to do it to anyone. Also, trying to pin it on just straight white men as being the ones coming after you is very cowardly and dishonest. Because you know darn well, it's not just straight white men who have a problem with this, but you don't want to acknowledge all of us who don't fit that demographic because, oh my God, that would be sexist and racist by your logic, wouldn't it? But in all of this, here's an idea. You know what might actually work? Creating an inclusive environment where all fans feel valued and heard. Addressing concerns with respect and openness could turn critics into your allies. Doctor Who was initially intended for everyone. Based on what I'm seeing here, it is said that it was originally intended to appeal to a family audience as an educational program using time travel as a means to explore scientific ideas and famous moments in history. I don't know, maybe it's time for the BBC to step back and listen to its fans and remember that at the heart of any long-lasting show is there waiting at your knees, your loyal audience that deserves respect and not scorn. The world is too beautiful for all of us to be perpetually angry at each other, but even more so from the studios and the people that are depending on people to buy their merch and invest monetarily into their franchise. You know, you shouldn't be throwing your thick pate fecal matter in the faces of your fans, because when you no longer receive any more food, you can't make any more shit to throw at them. Furthermore, you'll just become severely impacted. This was a very hateful and prejudiced and misandrist article that should never have been made. You want to handle the fringe people who are legitimately misogynist out there? Prove them wrong and make your story successful. Don't give them ammo to prove them right. At the end of the day, there'll always be other shows, so if people say what they need to say and criticize the show, they'll have other stuff to fall back on, but I can understand fans of the franchise who have been supporting this for years, why they would feel slighted and why they would feel gaslit and insulted when people tell them, just don't watch it. All right then, they won't. And then you'll be upset because they don't. You gotta pick a side. Anyways, how do you think they could have handled this better? And if you're wondering why I'm even reviewing the Doctor Who, it's because I did say in one of my videos a long time ago that after the Jodie Whittaker run and when this guy was announced as being casted, that I would indeed give it a chance. And so I am making good on my word and giving it a chance. I will give it a few more episodes, but at this point, it still feels like a parody and I will begin to see it as such. These are all new characters, so I'm not as invested in them, but the David Tennant thing really rubbed me the wrong way. In my head, that is not canon. And remember, I know you're the BBC, but that doesn't mean you need to fuck your fans. And yes, I mean that in every iteration that you can interpret that. It never ends well.